defending Abbas's comments themselves, but I want to put forward a point that has been made, that I have heard, which is a variation. You don't make peace with your friends, you make it with your enemies. And that is, we do see Israel, for example, having relations with, you could describe them as anti-Semitic elements, for example, now in Europe, in the leadership in Hungary, because of political convenience. So the argument being that whatever he may believe about the Holocaust and about Jews, as our guest said in Washington, what alternative is there? This is Israel has to deal with in making peace with the Palestinians.
See, the problem with this argument is that, and we saw this both with Arafat and with Mahmoud Abbas, is that the attitude of Abbas today of completely denying any historical link between the Jewish people and Israel makes it even harder to reach a compromise. Because when your attitude to peacemaking is, nobody expects Abbas to be a Zionist. But if you only say, I recognize I don't share your point of view, but I recognize your historical rights and I'm ready to reach a compromise. But when you completely deny the narrative and the beliefs of the other side, it's a complete turnoff. So, for example, when Arafat and Camp David denied the existence of the temple in Jerusalem, it made it nearly impossible to reach a compromise with Israel, because he wasn't saying, I recognize your historical link to this land, but I have my own narrative, let's reach a compromise. So when Abbas said, not only in his speech 2 days ago, but also a few months ago after Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, completely denying Jewish history, it's a complete turn-off for Israeli society. So he's making a psychological mistake. Yes, obviously Israel has to make peace with the leader of the Palestinians, even though he was elected last time in 2006, and he's 83 or something. So, but this whole attitude of denying Jewish history and Jewish beliefs is a turn-off to Israeli society and makes it even harder to reach a compromise.
Well, Nizar, what is your take on that, on what you just heard?
It may be a turnoff for the Israeli public. I think the bigger turnoff is having an actual election in which people elected Bibi Netanyahu on the premise that there will not be a Palestinian state. That was a watershed moment where, as far as the Palestinians are concerned, if Israel is a democracy, well, Israel has spoken and Israel is not interested in Palestinian independence. So I'm not sure that Abbas's statements really make that much of a difference. And the other thing I would like just to nuance, he didn't deny the Jewish connection. He just had a perspective on the way Jews were treated as opposed to being treated because they're Jewish as opposed to their behavior, which I think is an important point to point out, because there is another narrative that says that no, Jews are all bad because they are Jews, right? Likewise, saying that Muslims or Christians are bad because the religion tells them so. So in a way, what Abbas is saying is trying to differentiate between, distinguishing between blaming a whole set of people because of their religious affiliation versus making people accountable to their actions. I think that's the more important thing, as opposed to getting distracted by historical narratives. And the final point I would like to say is, again, like the previous speaker spoke, we can disagree about our narratives. The more important thing is what kind of political platform do we move forward with that would address our daily needs and not necessarily our historical narratives. I think that's the more important issue, and not get distracted by those narratives.
Well, distracted by those narratives, that's a statement, and a little bit of what you just said. I'd like to hear your reaction on, Emmanuel.
Well, holding Jews responsible for their behavior is basically justifying what Abbas said. It's not because they're Jewish, it's because of what they did. But it's not, the problem is not only with what Abbas said. First of all, he did say a few months ago, if you remember his previous kind of alternative history lesson at the PLO in gathering after Trump recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, where he did deny any historical connection between the Jews and Israel, and he completely denied Jewish history. So he did say this. But the problem with Abbas is not only his statements, it's also his policy, his actions, because don't forget that in 2008, he was offered by Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert a Palestinian state on nearly 100% of the West Bank and Gaza with land swaps, with a partition of Jerusalem, and with a partial right of return. And he turned it down. I mean, true, Olmert was a lame duck at the time, but he could have pocketed the offer. He turned it down. So he has a heavy historical responsibility. He is a failure, and that's why he's blaming Israel.
Dr. Emmanuel Navon, we have to wrap there. That is the beginning of a whole nother debate and a back and forth with context. Nizar Farsaq in Washington, thank you for being with us right here. We're going out for a quick break.